The idea for today's video came from my friend at the Life Lemon Dodge. Her name is Grace, and she's got a great channel. Go check her out. But she recently did a video about the chapters of your life, and she gave a great story about one of her more adventurous chapters in life, and it was a really interesting story, so go listen to her story. But it got me thinking about my chapters and what I have done in my life. I'm 60, so there's a lot of chapters, and I picked one I'm going to talk about. It was the chapter after college. I had gone to college, got my degrees, started working. I had worked for, I think, 4 years, and I decided I was in the need for some sort of adventure. So I lived at home with my parents. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. I had nothing holding me down. I used my professional magazine, I'm a speech pathologist, and just looked to see if there were jobs. I called this place up in Hawaii and applied. I interviewed over the phone. They hired me and I left. I spent almost 2 years working and living in Hawaii, and it was a great chapter of my life. Now, I had never done much by myself. This was a solo adventure. I'm sure my parents were a little nervous about it, but they supported me and helped me and spent a lot of money on me as well. I didn't realize how much postage cost when you send things to Hawaii, but there were certain things I just needed and didn't want to buy there because they were expensive. But looking back, maybe it would have been cheaper to buy it there instead of mailing it and then mailing it back when I moved home. So I worked at, it was called Kapiolani Women and Children's Hospital, and I worked at their day rehab programs around the island, and it was a very interesting job. I learned a lot, and I also got to spend time in different parts of the island of Oahu where I lived. So I thought I'd just take a little trip down memory lane, review this chapter in my life, and tell you a little couple stories about it. So it started with getting there. I flew and I met people from the hospital at the airport, and they were kind enough to take me to a hotel and start me off with a place to base myself from. The hotel was close to the hospital, so I think I had a day or two staying at the hotel before I had to go to the hospital for orientation and training and figuring out the job aspect of my life there. So during the free time, of course, I explored on foot and got my bearings a little bit about me, and then decided, okay, I need to figure out my living situation. So I used the newspaper. Back then it was a newspaper, and I found a couple looking for someone to rent a room in their house. So the people I moved in with were a very nice young couple, and she was an air traffic controller, and I'm not sure what he did now that I think about it, but they also raised Rottweiler puppies as a little side business. So that was kind of fun to be a part of. Once I secured a place to live, I had to figure out how I was going to get around. So I walked to a car dealership and drove off the lot with a car. So now I had a place to live and a car and a job, and I just started settling in and getting a routine. I played tourist on weekends and did some things on the evenings, and I had a great time exploring the island. I knew nobody there, but my mom had a friend with a niece who lived there, and she gave me her number. And during my stay there, I did call her, and she took me to different restaurants, and she showed me all the exciting sights and places to go. My mom also had a coworker that now lived on Hawaii at that time, and she gave me his number, and he took me on all kinds of hikes and showed me some nature things. And he did some sort of the rowing thing, I think, or he took me to a place that they had the rowing. there's just a lot of things that I wouldn't have known about if I didn't have those two connections. So that was really nice to have somebody to connect with a little bit. And my sister, after 6 months or so, graduated college, and she decided to move out with me. So although I went there solo and was forced to get a place to stay, get a car, and do all that, she joined me and was there with me the entire rest of the 18 months to 2 years. She got a job as a preschool teacher, and I think she also worked for a little while at a maternity store in the mall. So that was kind of fun. But until she got there, I just did things by myself. I learned to be fine going out to dinner, going to movies, going to tourist things, going to the big flea market at the Aloha Stadium. I just went to a lot of different things by myself, just soaking it all in. Now, during the time I was there, we had a lot of visitors, of course. As you can imagine, they had somebody to go and visit. So my mom and dad came for Christmas and New Year's, and that was the best thing. For our whole family was there. I just have one sister, and that was so nice. That was a really nice thing to give them a place to go on a vacation that they never used to do. So that was a great part of my time there. I had friends come twice, 2 sets of friends. My sister had a set of friends come, I think, once, and we went to the same tourist attractions every single time. I took them to luau's. I took them to the shrimp shack on the North Shore. We went to Waimea Bay. We went to Hanauma Bay. We went to Waikiki. We went to Diamond Head. I had all my friends climb Diamond Head with me, but not my parents. And we just did all the tourist things. And it's about, if I remember right, it's about 4 hours to drive completely around the outside of Oahu, with the exception of this one part that juts out that I think is a military base, so I never went there. But I've been around that island quite a few times. Now, this was in 1992, and things are much different, I'm sure, but a lot of things are probably still the same. After I'm done with my chat, I'm going to just kind of do a bunch of my pictures from there. They are all paper pictures, so I'm going to have to scan them and then upload them into my CapCut and then get them on YouTube. So there's going to be a little bit of an editing with this video that I don't usually have. But I had a wonderful once-in-a-lifetime adventure. I braved doing it alone, and I would have been fine had my sister not come, but it really did provide me with somebody to enjoy things with, and now we've both had those experiences. We took Thanksgiving and we island hopped over to Maui and spent a long weekend, I think, in Maui. And I am so grateful we did that. You know, of course, the devastation that happened there recently has changed it, but we experienced a lot of neat things. We went up Haleakala Mountain and didn't remember that it was probably cold up there, so we only had a beach towel in our car, and that was a fun memory. Some other things I did while we were there was to go to the Arizona Memorial. That was a very solemn tourist attraction. They show you a video before you go out on a ferry to the actual memorial, which is over the top of the sunken ship, and there's still oil coming up, and it's kind of a little eerie because there are still the bodies of soldiers on the ship. But we went there. We went to Polynesian Cultural Center, I believe it's called, where they give you all the traditional fire shows and hula dances and things like that. We just did everything as a tourist, and then we got to do some things like locals. And the people in Hawaii love their food, and there is so much food at even the smallest little events. When I was at my job, there would be something tiny to celebrate, and it would be a feast with food with so many different cultures that live there. There is food from everything. I tried so many different foods, Korean, Filipino, there's just everything, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, all of the Asian cuisines were there. I tried so many different things. I know I'm forgetting a lot of things that I did there. It was 1992 and 3. So I rely on some of my pictures to remind me of what I did there. And it was a great experience. So I almost forgot the most important story of my adventure in Hawaii is that I lived through Hurricane Iniki. That was not fun at all. I believe I felt something they call rock fever there because I felt trapped. People feel that all the time, but I guess it's worse during hurricanes because you just go in and up to avoid hurricanes. And it was pretty bad on Oahu, but really the other island, I think Kauai is the one that was really affected. And I think that, well, that's the island they were filming Jurassic Park on, and I believe they were filming it around that time of the hurricane. So what was happening in my life at that time is my sister and I were moving out from living with the couple, and we were getting our own townhouse down in Pearl Harbor, and the couple we were living with was splitting up. So he came with us, and my sister had a friend that moved to the island, and so the 4 of us rented a townhouse. And what was happening is the day we were moving is when the hurricane was, or the day after. My sister and I were already over in the apartment, but the guy that was going to come with us and the girl had not yet arrived, and we didn't have much stuff with us. My sister was not working that day, but I worked for a hospital, so I was required to come in. But we didn't have our phone hooked up yet, and they didn't have my cell phone number. It was very early days on cell phones, but so they contacted him, who he was still at the other house, and he drove to our house to tell me that it was mandatory that I go into the hospital as an extra person since I was a hospital employee. So I wound up spending the entire day in the children's ward watching videos with the kids to try to keep them calm. And my sister was left home alone without a radio or a TV or anything. So luckily, neighbors in the development gave her a little TV and a little radio, and she contacted me once. I think we were able to contact each other once, and we just rode out the storm. But I didn't like it, and you can look it up, Hurricane Iniki, and it was the first time I had ever experienced anything like a hurricane, and it was pretty severe. Even though we didn't get the brunt of it, it was over on the other island and more on the coast of the island near the other part of the other island. But we still felt the effects of it, and it was kind of scary. So I don't ever really want to go through that again, and I have a lot of sympathy for anybody who lives in hurricane zones. I do not like that. But I almost forgot that part of the story, that my sister and I did eventually move out. And I just wanted to come back and share that, and I wound up editing that in. So then there came the time we had to leave. So what we did is we shipped my car to Seattle, and we timed it so that we made sure it was in Seattle before we flew there, and picked up my car, and then we drove cross country from Seattle, Washington, all the way across the United States to upstate New York. I have no idea how long it took. We had a bird with us. My sister had a pet cockatiel, I think it's called. And so he came with us, and that was an adventure in itself. We stayed overnight at places like Yellowstone Park and different places like that. The one regret I have about this trip is we passed, when we were in South Dakota, we passed the road that you turn to go to Mount Rushmore. And I remember distinctly the sign said something like 22 miles. And we did the math and said, okay, that's about a half hour to get there and a half hour to get back and probably an hour at the attraction. So that's adding 2 hours to our trip. And at that point, we were just wanting to get home, and we were done. And looking back on that, I regret not going to that one attraction. We stopped in Wall. I think, now was that in Wyoming? I'm not even sure anymore. But we went through all the states. If you take the trip straight across the top of the country, that follows the easiest way to get to upstate New York. That's how we did it. So I hope you enjoyed my little story, and I hope you enjoy some of the pictures I'm going to post right after I'm done speaking. It was my solo time in life, and I'm glad I spent it having an adventure. So enjoy the pictures. This is the Ala Moana Hotel, which was my first home there. And this is a shrimp shack on the North Shore that I loved. And this is just a park and some sunset pictures. And this is Diamond Head Crater, which you'll see in a lot of my pictures because I took pictures of it from all over the island. And this is Waimea Bay. I forgot what this is, but it was in some movie. This is called the Blowhole. I believe this is called Chinaman's Cap. This was at a park. I don't remember what this is called. This is a view of Honolulu from the top of Diamond Head. This was at the Wyland Galleries in Maui. This was a lighthouse from the top of Diamond Head Crater. I believe this is Waimea Bay again, and these are some dolphins at a place we went. Another view of Diamond Head, and another view of Diamond Head. The rainbows are for you, Tracy. I took many, many sunset pictures. This was a plant on Maui, on Haleakala. Just some random ocean pictures. I must have taken thousands of pictures. This is Haleakala. This was a sandcastle competition. Just some typical Hawaiian sunset pictures. This is the Arizona Memorial. I have a lot of pictures of this, and I went to it many times. This is Peacock. Here's Mom and Dad in Hawaii in front of Diamond Head. Here's Hanauma Bay. This is where I went snorkeling. It's beautiful. Waikiki Beach, looking at Diamond Head Crater. This is where they had the weekend flea market, and it's also where they have the Pro Bowl, usually. And more of the Arizona Memorial. These are in no order, I may have said that. This is the neighborhood I lived in, and this is the street I lived on. I don't have a picture of the house. And then just a random boat.